I worked the late shift at a small family restaurant on the edge of town. It wasn't a haunted place or anything, just a normal diner where people came for pancakes and cheap coffee. But there was one table. Table 9. Every few nights, a man would sit there silently and wait for me to take his order. Same clothes. Same posture. Same cold stare. But here's the part that almost destroyed my sanity. My coworkers claimed he never existed. Not once did anyone else see him. Not once did he show up on camera. And the night I finally approached him, he lifted his head and told me something that still makes my skin crawl. It was always the late-night shifts that hit the hardest. Empty booths. Soft jazz from a cheap speaker. The flickering neon open sign humming against the window. That night, it was just me, the cook Luis, and our closing manager, Janet. Slow night, only 2 tables left. I was wiping down the counter when I noticed someone sitting at table 9, the booth near the back window. A man in his late 40s, short beard, pale skin, wet hair like he'd been out in the rain. He sat perfectly still, hands folded, staring ahead. He gave me a slight nod when I walked over. Evening. What can I get for you? He didn't talk, just pointed to the menu, tapping the chicken pot pie. Got it, I said, forcing a smile. When I turned back toward the kitchen window, Luis frowned. Who are you talking to? Table 9. Luis leaned to look. There's nobody there. I laughed it off. Dude, he's literally sitting there. But when I turned around, the booth was empty. Just a cold, untouched glass of water. I convinced myself I was just tired. But 2 nights later, he came back. Same seat. Same soaked clothes. Same stillness. This time he did speak, a whisper, crackly like static. Chicken pot pie, please. I froze. Didn't you order this last time? He just stared at me, eyes pale blue, almost gray. I wrote the order down, my hands shaking, and walked to the kitchen. Janet met me halfway. Who are you giving that ticket to? Table 9. There's no one on 9, sweetheart. I snapped. Janet, I literally just talked to him. We both turned. The booth was empty again. My order slip was still in my hand. But the handwriting wasn't mine. Small, shaky letters spelled. Table 9. After that, I started noticing the pattern. He only came during bad weather, heavy rain, thunder, cold winds. He always ordered but never touched his food. He never blinked. One night, I asked Luis if anyone had ever died around here, maybe a regular who used to sit at that booth. Luis shook his head. No deaths. But locals say Table 9 was cursed or whatever. Some guy disappeared years ago, ate here the night he vanished. I didn't believe that. Until the next storm. Rain hammered the windows. Wind howled. And there he was again, Table 9, waiting like he had been there for hours. This time, he wasn't alone. A puddle of water spread under his chair, even though he never moved. Janet finally believed me, because she caught me talking to nobody again. So we checked the CCTV. I watched the footage from just 10 minutes earlier. There I was, standing at Table 9, smiling, nodding, talking. But the booth was empty. Empty. Then something even more disturbing happened. The footage glitched for a split second. A dark silhouette flickered into the seat across from me. Not a man. More like a wet, dripping shadow. Janet paused the video. What the hell? Before she could say anything else, the monitor flickered. And a new order slip printed from the kitchen ticket machine. No one was near it. The slip simply read, Chicken pot pie. Table 9. 4 days later, during a violent storm, the restaurant was almost empty. Lightning flashed nonstop. And when I walked toward the back, I saw him again. Sitting at Table 9. Head down. Shaking. Water dripping from his sleeves. I felt something buzzing in my ears, a pressure, like someone whispering underwater. When I finally walked up to him, he raised his head for the first time, and I took a step back. His face was pale blue, lips purple, eyes sunken, drops of water rolling down his cheeks like tears. He whispered, "I never made it home." I stammered, What do you want?" He looked at me with dead, glassy eyes. "To finish, my last meal." Then he pointed to the empty seat across from him. "Sit, with me." I ran so fast I slipped near the dish pit. I didn't go back to the booth. Not that night. Not ever. The next morning, the owner finally told me everything. 22 years ago. A man drowned in a flash flood after leaving the restaurant. Witnesses said he was last seen eating alone at Table 9. They never recovered his body. Locals claimed he shows up during storms, trying to finish the meal he never got to eat. After my encounter, I quit the job. But sometimes, when thunderstorms roll through town, I still imagine him sitting there, dripping, waiting, staring at the doorway like he expects me to serve him one more time. And the creepiest part? A few months later, I drove by during heavy rain. The restaurant was closed for renovation. But through the window, I swear I saw someone sitting at table 9. If you've ever worked in a restaurant, you know the walk-in freezer is the one place nobody wants to be alone. But at the place where I worked, that freezer wasn't just cold, it watched you. It started with small things, sounds, whispers, thuds. But the night I heard someone say my name from inside the freezer, even though nobody was in there, I knew something was terribly wrong. And by the end of that shift, I found out the truth. Someone had died in that freezer, and he never left. I was the closing cook at a medium-sized diner, open until 2 a.m. Most shifts were quiet after midnight, just me and our dishwasher, Toby. The walk-in freezer sat at the far end of the kitchen, a giant steel box with a heavy door and a flickering fluorescent light inside. Everyone hated going in there. It felt wrong, like stepping into a room where someone had just been standing, watching you. That night was slow. I was chopping vegetables, Toby was finishing dishes, and rain hammered the rooftop. Around 1:10 a.m., I heard a loud, heavy thud from inside the freezer. Not metal clanking. Not ice shifting. A fist. A human fist. Toby looked at me. "Did you hear that?" "Yeah." Another boom echoed. Too clear. Too sharp. Too deliberate. We both stared at the freezer door. But neither of us moved. Finally, I grabbed the handle, pushed open the door, and stepped into the icy air. My breath fogged immediately. Hello? The freezer was empty. Shelves full of produce. Crates stacked. Nothing unusual. I stood still, trying to convince myself it was the compressor or the fan. But I couldn't shake the feeling someone had just been inside. I walked out and shut the door. Toby said, "Dude, I swear I heard something in there." "Probably just shifting boxes," I lied. As if responding to my lie. 3 slow knocks came from the other side of the metal door. Knock. 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 Toby ran out of the kitchen. I almost followed him. 10 minutes later, I needed to grab a box of frozen fries. I didn't want to go back in, but the restaurant was closing and the order had to be finished. I opened the freezer, grabbed the box, and turned to leave. That's when the freezer door suddenly slammed shut behind me. Click. The latch locked. From the outside. I dropped the box. My breath grew shallow. Panic surged. I grabbed the handle and pulled with all my strength. Nothing. The lights flickered. A cold wave ran through the room, the type of cold that doesn't belong to air temperature. Then I heard it. Behind me. Close. A whisper. Help me. I spun around, nobody. Just shelves and crates. but the whisper echoed like it bounced off a body standing right next to me. I slammed my fists on the door. "Toby! Open it!" The door finally clicked open. Toby pulled it with wide eyes. "Dude," the latch showed manual override. I didn't touch it. The freezer smelled like wet metal and something else. Something like old, rotting breath. I refused to go near the freezer after that. Toby refused too. But around 1:45 a.m., we heard the same pounding again. This time faster. Angrier. Then, a soft, dragging sound. Like nails scraping along the steel from the inside. Toby whispered, "What if someone is actually stuck in there?" "No," I said. "I checked. It's empty." But my voice sounded less confident than I wanted. Then it happened. The worst moment of my life. A voice, wet, weak, trembling, spoke from behind the freezer door. "Don't leave me in here, please." It said it again. Closer. Right up against the metal. "Please, don't leave me." Toby bolted out of the restaurant, leaving me standing there shaking. I didn't blame him. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. For the first time, I realized the knocking wasn't random. It was a pattern. Someone was trying to get out. The next day, I demanded answers. I went to our manager, an older guy named Frank. When I told him everything, he sighed heavily, like he'd been expecting this. "You weren't supposed to hear that," he muttered. "Hear what?" I asked. He finally told me the truth. Years ago, before the restaurant changed ownership, a line cook got locked inside the freezer during a power outage. No one noticed until morning. He froze to death pressed against the door, clawing to get out. They repainted the freezer. Replaced the shelves. But they never replaced the door. Frank said, whenever it storms, people say they hear him knocking. Calling. Trying to get someone to open it. I felt sick. The voice I heard wasn't just a ghost. It was someone reliving their last moments. A week later, during another heavy storm, I worked my final late-night shift. Toby didn't show up. Smart guy. I was alone in the kitchen when I heard it again. Knock. 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 Slow. Rhythmic. Begging. The freezer door creaked open by itself, just an inch. Cold mist drifted out like breath in winter. On the inside of the metal panel, a fresh handprint formed in frost. Not old. Not faded. Fresh. 5 fingers. Shaky. Pressed against the steel just like a dying man desperate to escape. I grabbed my things and ran out of the building, not even clocking out. I never went back. But to this day, sometimes when I drive past that restaurant, I swear I see the freezer door slowly swinging open in the dark. As if someone is still waiting for someone, anyone, to finally let him out. I used to work at a quiet family restaurant on the edge of a small town. Nothing creepy, nothing strange, just the usual regulars. Except for her. A woman in her mid-40s who always came alone. Always asked for a table for 2. Always sat in booth 4. We all thought she was waiting for someone. But no one ever showed up. Then one day, we checked the cameras. And what we saw sitting across from her was not a person. I worked evenings, the quiet shifts. Booth 4 was my section. A simple corner booth next to the window, usually empty except when she came. She'd walk in calmly, her wet umbrella folded under her arm even on days it didn't rain, her eyes always tired, always scanning the room. "Table for 2, please," she'd say softly. Not smiling. Not polite. Just empty. I'd lead her to booth 4 like always. She would slide in on the left side, smooth her dress, and place her bag on the opposite seat, as if saving it for someone. I would ask, "Will your friend be joining you soon?" Every time, she nodded. "He's on his way." But her second guest never came. Not once. At first, the staff joked about it. Maybe she's on a long-distance relationship. Maybe she's just lonely. Maybe she's crazy. But after a few weeks, her behavior changed. She started whispering to the empty seat, nodding like she was listening, pushing food toward the vacant side, shivering whenever people walked by. One night, when I tried wiping the opposite seat before she sat, she snapped. "Don't touch that. He hates that." Her voice was sharp, terrified, protective. Like she really believed someone was sitting there. I backed away. "Sorry. I didn't know." She softened instantly. "It's okay. He's just sensitive." She smiled. But her eyes didn't. Her eyes looked like someone who hadn't slept in years. The moment everything changed started on a slow Tuesday. Our new hire, Maddie, was sorting old lost and found items in the supply closet. "Hey," she called out, "look what I found." She handed me a missing person flyer, yellow and wrinkled. A photo of a man in his 40s, clean-shaven, smiling. Missing since 2010. Last seen, local restaurant, our restaurant before it changed owners. Description, often seen sitting with a female companion. I froze. The woman's description matched the woman in booth 4. Same hairstyle. Same eyes. Same exhausted expression. Except the flyer was from 14 years ago. I whispered, "No way, she can't be." Before I finished, I felt a sudden cold chill behind me. Like someone standing too close. When I turned, no one was there. But Maddie looked pale. "Did someone just walk past?" she asked. I shook my head. We both suddenly wanted to get out of that hallway. A week later, a huge storm rolled in, thunder, wind, everything shaking. We thought no customers would come. But she did. Soaked. Shivering. Eyes wide like she had seen something horrifying. "Booth 4, she said instantly. Her voice cracked. I followed her with menus. As she sat down, she held the opposite seat with both hands, whispering, "It's okay. He won't find you here, not tonight." I swallowed hard. "Is everything all right?" She leaned in. "He's very close today." I didn't understand. "Who?" She didn't answer. Her eyes just kept darting toward the empty seat. Then she whispered, "Don't look at him. He hates when people notice him." The seat across from her felt colder than the rest of the restaurant. Like someone invisible was sitting there, dripping cold air onto the floor. After she left, the storm knocked out power twice. Our manager, Stacy, decided to check the cameras to make sure nothing malfunctioned. We opened the footage from booth 4. At first, it looked normal. She sat alone, talking softly. Then Stacy froze the screen. "Look who there." A dark, human-shaped distortion sat in the opposite seat. Almost invisible, but undeniably there. As the woman talked, the shadow leaned closer. As if listening. In one clip, the shadow lifted its head toward the camera. And the screen glitched violently. The timestamp flickered. The lights in the office dimmed. Then the shadow shape moved. Just enough to reveal a faint outline of a man's face. Stacy slammed the laptop shut. "Nope. No. I'm not dealing with that. Absolutely not." Her last visit was the most horrifying. It was a Saturday, busy night, restaurant filled with families. She walked in looking calmer than usual. Peaceful. Empty. "Table for two?" I asked out of habit. She shook her head softly. "No, not today." She sat quietly at booth 4, staring at the window. I brought her water. When I set it down, she whispered, "Thank you for being kind. Most people aren't." Then she stood up, straightened her coat, picked up her bag. "Just before leaving," she said, "he found me." A faint smile. He's been waiting a long time. She walked out the door. And for the first time ever, the empty seat slid back on its own, as if someone invisible stood up to follow her. We never saw her again. Police later told us the same thing. The woman in the photos vanished 14 years ago with her boyfriend, the man in the missing flyer. Their bodies were never found. Some say she wandered back looking for him. Others say he stayed behind, waiting for her. But the truth? Some nights when I clean booth 4, I still feel a cold presence sitting across from me. Like a shadow leaning forward. Watching. Waiting. To see if she'll return.